The United States has recently backed out of the Iranian nuclear deal, leaving many questions about what the future holds for relations between the United States and Iran. However, in order to understand the situation more clearly, one must understand the upbringings and foundations that gave us the current plight we are in. In the 1950s, Iran is given their first nuclear reactor by the United States and intends to use it solely for energy purposes. At the time, the relationship between the United States and Iran is strong because of the Shah's strong relationships with the West. However, after its enemy Israel obtains a nuclear bomb in the 1960s, Iran's attitude towards the nuclear program shifts slightly, yet Iran does not begin its quest for the nuclear bomb yet. In 1979, the Shah is overthrown and Ayatollah Khomeini is made the supreme leader of Iran. Still, the nuclear bomb is not a great priority. The 80s mark a more serious shift in the attitudes towards the nuclear program in Iran. Being at war with Iraq, who is also attempting to obtain a nuclear weapon, raises the urgency of top Iranian officials. New supreme leader Khamenei is more open to nuclear weapons than Khomeini, and quickly begins bolstering the capabilities of the nuclear program. By the mid-90s, Iran's uranium enrichment capabilities skyrocketed, and the threat of nuclear bombs became more realistic. The U.S. responds with heavy sanctions and hopes for the best. Unfortunately, by 2002, intelligence reveals that Iran's nuclear program is far more sophisticated than imagined. However, the U.S. is distracted by attempting to oust Hussein from Iraq, and ignores the threat for the meantime. In 2005, the election of hyper-conservative Mohammad Ahmadinejad changes the U.S. attitude towards Iran. Because of Ahmadinejad's remarks around his desire to destroy Israel and his strong anti-Western sentiments, the U.S. decides to start covert operations disrupting the Iranian nuclear program and slowing down the process of obtaining nuclear bombs. In 2009, President Obama takes office and continues with the Bush administration's tactics, however pushes for the possibility of starting talks with Iran. Simultaneously, the political climate in Iran is ramping up, and many Iranians are starting to doubt the elites in power. Sanctions from the West take a heavy toll on the economy, and many young Iranians are disillusioned and motivated to join the Green Movement, which hopes to remove Ahmadinejad from power. The economy in Iran at the time is so bad, and sanctions were so tough, oil had been stored on barges made for transport, and many were forced into poverty. Finally, in 2013, Hassan Rouhani was elected the president of Iran by running as a liberal reformer who hoped to repair relations with the West and take down sanctions. President Obama and President Rouhani talked on the phone, eventually agreed upon suspending the Iranian nuclear program until a deal could be made. The P5+1 is the UN's Permanent Security Council containing members China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States, plus Germany. These countries entered negotiations with Iran in order to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons and lift the heavy sanctions placed on Iran. After months of deliberation and negotiation, in April of 2015, the framework of the nuclear deal was completed and announced later in June. The nuclear deal works on 4 fronts: cutting stockpiles, limiting enrichment, decreasing number of centrifuges, and allowing for thorough inspections. These are all in exchange for lifting heavy sanctions on Iran. The breakout time, or time it takes to create a nuclear bomb for Iran, was elongated from 2 to 3 months to over an entire year. Although there is controversy on the quality of inspections, most people in the community agree that if Iran were to cheat on the inspections, the IAEA would catch them. In fact, the Director General of the IAEA said, "Our inspection work has doubled since 2013. IAEA inspectors now spend 3,000 calendar days per year on the ground in Iran. We have installed some 2,000 tamper-proof seals on nuclear material and equipment. We collect and analyze hundreds of thousands of images captured daily by our sophisticated surveillance cameras in Iran, about half the total number of images that we collect throughout the world." Although the Iranian nuclear deal was placed into action, there are still many who doubted the effectiveness of the deal. Because of past relations with Iran, many politicians in America were wary of Iran's commitment to abiding by the rules of the deal. They felt that the deal was not harsh enough on Iran, and that Iran could easily cheat past the IAEA inspections and create a nuclear weapon. Right-wing politicians often cited Iran's past programs, which were dedicated to creating nuclear weapons, and their poor cooperation with the IAEA. However, there has been no empirical evidence suggesting that Iran has cheated with the agreement. More current arguments against the Iranian nuclear deal suggest the deal does not do enough to stop Iran's aggression in the region and allows instability to grow within the Middle East. American politicians will often cite Iran's sponsorship of terrorists and military groups who fight proxy wars against Saudi Arabia, the West, and their allies. Politicians like Trump, Mike Pompeo, and other right-wingers are concerned with the repercussions of allowing Iran to develop regional control within the Middle East. Much of Iran's foreign policy contradicts that of the U.S., and the Iranian nuclear deal does nothing to address that issue. In this regard, the Iranian nuclear deal has failed. However, stopping Iran's aggression abroad was never the initial goal of the deal. As for Iran, they have enjoyed the benefits that come from sanctions being lifted. In 2016, for the first time in 3 years, Iran shipped 4 million barrels of oil to France, Spain, and Russia. The work done by Rouhani to secure the lifting of sanctions is being enjoyed by Iranian people who have suffered under the harsh sanctions for over 2 decades. Unfortunately for Iran and their economy, the Iranian nuclear deal has remained under fire by current U.S. President Donald Trump, who has made it clear that he thinks the nuclear deal is a disaster for American security and for the U.S. interests abroad. The president said in a speech on May of 2017 that Iran's government is a government that speaks openly of mass murder, vowing the destruction of Israel, death to America, and ruin for many leaders and nations. However, even some of Trump's closest advisors have warned against the dangers of backing out of the Iranian nuclear deal. Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis, who was against the nuclear deal during its conception, has now retracted his statements and argued for keeping the deal. Mr. Mattis told senators in October of 2017 that it was in America's interest to stick with the deal, as it allowed for security in the region and eased relations between Iran and the U.S. Although no one can know for sure, there is much speculation on what will happen if Trump ends up backing out of the deal sometime in May of 2018. Many suggest that in the short term, Iran will stay with the deal with the remaining countries due to the immediate economic opportunities that exist. Iran is heavily invested in providing economic opportunity for its people, and the sanctions lifted by the deal is a major pathway to accomplish that goal. If Iran were to succeed in developing their economy, relative stability would be achieved and the crisis would be averted. However, if foreign investors from Europe and China fail to help boost Iran's economy, and Iran slides back into deep poverty, Iran could be ripe for a right-wing takeover. Anti-Western sentiment could skyrocket, and the government could decide to reinitiate their nuclear weapons program without the surveillance from any IAEA or other foreign bodies. Although no one can know what will happen for sure, the stability of the Middle East rides heavily on the outcome of Iran's nuclear program.